Style. What kind of style does a writer have? We have a very different definition of style. When you think about someone's style, you would put together her walk, her clothes, her talk, the way that she addresses people. It would be everything about the person that has a certain style, right? In art and literature, it's the same way. There are several elements that come together to form a kind of style that the writer has. Now, these styles may not be original. Styles are generally motivated by intention. So styles can be inherited. Of course, authors have their original tone of voice and word choice, and so each author does have his own particular style because each author is a person. But the overarching elements of style can be broken down by discussing word choice, subject matter, point of view, characterization, setting, tone, and theme. So that means that style is the sum of all of these parts. Subject matter. What is the writer writing about? It shows you what the writer likes to write about. Point of view. How does the author use narration in the book? Is he a third-person narrator? Is he a first-person narrator? Maybe throughout his works, he has a similar and consistent style. And believe me, most authors do, as most artists. What about characterization? How the author develops the characters. Is the way that the characters are being developed similar throughout the author's work? How is he choosing to describe them? Does he use mostly physical imagery or emotional description? Setting. Is the author describing the setting in detail? Does he make it a character in the book? Or is the setting merely a backdrop for the main drama that's happening in the characters? Tone. Remember, the tone is the attitude that the author takes in his work, and it affects the mood of the reader when engaging with it. What kind of tone does the narration have? Is it controlling? Is it opinionated? Is it judgmental? Is it vulnerable? Is it childlike? And what about the theme? Remember, that's not plot. That's the overarching point of why the author wrote the work. The thing he's trying to tell you, the argument he's trying to make. And all of the other elements that we talked about, use of words, alliteration, references, all of these things come together and point to a very specific style for each writer. Each writer has a unique sense of style. But remember I mentioned that some styles can be inherited, and inherited styles come mainly from motivation, by the purpose of what the author is doing in making the work, and specifically how he's writing it. For example, a romantic style comes from the Romantic era, and romantic writing focuses on the emotive qualities of the work as opposed to aesthetic. That means that romantic writing or romantic style of writing wants to feature the emotions of the character. It even wants to move you as a reader to be emotive, as opposed to the aesthetic, which is the beauty of the work, the beauty of the language, or just the simple appearance of how it looks. Because the motivation of romanticism is to move the reader. That's the intention. So all of those elements, tone, characterization, point of view, all of those things will work together for that mission, to move the reader, if the writer is writing in a romantic style. Another style is neoclassicism, and this style is very different because the intention is really to kind of honor an art. This is really during the Restoration and Augustan age, but also the age of Johnson, and it tried to imitate the style of the ancient Greeks. A very classical writing, very formal, very philosophical. So the intention is not really the plot or to move the reader in any way emotionally, but more to maintain the integrity of the kind of diction or word choice and philosophies that were held by the ancient Greeks. In an expressionist style, expressionism was a revolt against realism and naturalism. Expressionism wanted to achieve a psychological and spiritual reality rather than just record external events in a logical sequence. So, as opposed to writing a story chronologically from beginning, middle to end in order to record a sequence of events and show you how things happened, Expressionist style really tries to move things around in order to create a more surreal and not physical feel of where you are, because it wants to kind of move you up into another level of mind space for a psychological book, or a spiritual space for a book about religion. Franz Kafka and James Joyce followed this style and are very indicative of it. Naturalism. It's a philosophical rather than a technical style. The point of naturalism is to really show humans in our element on Earth and juxtaposed against our environment. But in naturalism, it's very specifically nature that we are juxtaposed to, or the elements of nature, things that are fixed, oceans, mountains, winter, summer, heat, cold. It's the study of humans and characters through their relationships with other things. So how humans interact with nature, how a human survives in the winter. That's the naturalist style, to show human interaction to the environment, specifically the natural environment around. Abstractionism. It's having a representation that really has no reference to concrete objects or a specific example, which means that it doesn't have to follow all of the rules of allusions and references and things, even onomatopoeia. The sounds in an abstract writing can be very odd. The images can seem delusional or confusing or muddled. But this is the point of abstractionist style, because the point is to mess up your mind a little bit so that you don't see everything as it is, but to pull out your perspective a little bit and to kind of see things as if they were mixed up, trying to create a different reality. Imagine a Picasso painting. His portrayal of a woman is very different than, say, Raphael's portrayal of a woman. Raphael would portray the woman very realistically. Picasso, in shapes. Again, having no concrete objects to reference, but to really create a different perspective for you. They want to create a different image for you, a different way to see what's happening in the story. Sentimental style is exactly what it says. It wants to evoke sentiment. It's an 18th century style that focuses on emotional and intelligent concepts of sentiment. There are scenes of distress and tenderness, loyalty, love, honor. The plot advances the emotions of the characters, and the emotions advance the actions of the characters, as in a novel of sensibility. So the whole purpose is to show you the characters' vulnerability, their emotional states, and how unpredictable they are. Pastoral writing, remember, pastoral talks about rural life. It's very specific. And pastoral writing specifically talks about an ideal rural life. So in that vein, pastoral writing will not give you a bad image of life on a farm or on the countryside in isolation. Rather, it will give you a great perspective of that. It will tell you that pastoral living is ideal, to leave the city, to embrace the countryside, even the isolation and the loneliness, because in it you find peace. So pastoral writing aim and style is aimed to make you feel like country life is excellent. Imagism was part of the early 20th century modernist movement. I mentioned to you Ezra Pound and H.D. or Hilda Doolittle, who were the founders of Imagism. And it focused on the power of the image to communicate meaning. In an imagistic style of writing, the images move forward the plot. The descriptions of characters or of setting or of situations or exchanges between characters become so powerful that there in the image you can find motivation, beauty, conflict, understanding, and confusion. The saying, "a picture paints 1,000 words," also works opposite in Imagism, because many words can also paint a very clear picture. And so that's the point of Imagism, to move you by what is shown to you, through your sense of sight, instead of through your intelligence and reason. Post-colonialism was a discourse of colonization and its effects. These books, written in post-colonial style, have a very specific motive to explain the effects of colonization, both before colonization happens and after. So therein, post-colonialism style can be very political, it can be social, it can even be religious. So there is a sense of an agenda in a post-colonialist book. As you can see, there are so many different styles that a writer can inherit. And in addition to the style he has on his own, you'll need to review these styles. You'll need to see how they are different from one another. Review the lecture again and see how each one has a different motivation, which leads the writer in a different way to tell the story.